Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
If subsistence hunting, trapping, and fishing are important to you, please consider applying for one of the open seats on your Federal Subsistence Regional Advisory Council. These seats will be filled by rural Alaskans who are knowledgeable about fish and wildlife subsistence in their region. Apply by Friday, January 29th, 2016. Information at 1-800-478-1456 or email subsistence@fws.gov.
Sometimes the best way to find a living is to stay right where you are and study with UAS online. Career-specific distance programs from the University of Alaska Southeast are the fastest way to increase your earning power.
We connect all over the world.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Thursday's edition, New Year's Eve of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting tonight's show. Up on the warning advisory watch map, we've got a winter weather advisory out here for the Kobuk Valley, and that's out through Friday, through tomorrow, for 4 to 7 inches of snow, and also winter weather advisory here for the Koyukuk Valley in the southeastern Brooks Range, and that's also for 4 to 7 inches of snow, but that's out through tonight for these two areas. And then a wind advisory continues here for the upper Yukon Valley, looking for southwest winds through tonight to continue to blow 25 to 45 miles per hour. Also a wind advisory here for the upper Tanana Valley 40-mile country. Same thing, 25 to 45 mile per hour winds. And then the high wind warning continues for the Alaska Range passes west of the Toe Cutoff. And that's out through tonight as well till 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. And winds could gust as high as 75 miles per hour there. And then farther down to the south, we have a small stream flood advisory for the Anchor River in Anchor Point, and that's out through tomorrow morning. And then lastly here, a blizzard watch is up for the Thompson Pass there, northeastern Prince William Sound. Well, actually right at Thompson Pass, and that starts tomorrow afternoon and continues through tomorrow night for possible blizzard conditions developing in that area. On to the satellite imagery. Yesterday we had this another big storm here pulling northwestward across the southwest, and the front edging its way eastward here along the coast, and then some breaks here moving northward following the front, and then another system down here to the south coming up to the north there. Initial break that rolled into Kodiak Island yesterday afternoon, low center pulling back to the northwest, and we'll see today that system moved northward, brought the gusty winds, rain and snow across southern Alaska, lifting northward into the interior, actually breaking up as it does, and the front extending eastward here, bringing the gusty winds and rain to the southeast coast during the day today. Yakutat getting gusts of 55 miles per hour earlier this morning as that front moved through, and Juneau and Sitka seeing winds gusting to 45 miles per hour throughout the afternoon today. Associated with that front, with rain across the entire area. The next system coming northward here, already spreading clouds in across Kodiak Island. Rain just about ready to start down in that area, but a break here coming in between the system lifting northward and this next one coming up from the south. So pretty nice afternoon here across the North Gulf Coast area back into the southwest interior part of the state. On the chart today, we had the low lifting northward, and the pressure rises behind that, giving the gusty winds again along the North Gulf Coast and through south central Alaska. Gusts hit 55 miles per hour at Chilitna as that pulled through during the afternoon hours. In the front with the rain and wind, storm force winds along the coast there, 50 to 60 knots along the southeast coast over the eastern Gulf of Alaska, and then higher pressure following in behind, and the clearing we got behind that. And there's the next system with those clouds gathering there. The front right about in this area here at about 3 o'clock this afternoon, the low center coming onto the map. Back out to the west, a couple of lows here over the central Bering Sea and just north of the Aleutian chain. Scattered rain and snow showers in the Pribilofs develop into mostly snow showers over the Adak and Atka area. Then a general area of snow with northwest winds of 25 gusting as high as 40 miles an hour out towards Shimia, and a swath of snow here extending over the interior there up into the southeastern Brooks Range, and some areas of light snow along the eastern Arctic coast. Otherwise, the north slope pretty dry. Outlook for tonight, that next system coming northward there. Again, the winds on the increase here, Kodiak Island, rain back across the Alaska Peninsula. This front kind of stalled out here along the southeast coast as a strong area high pressure holds over British Columbia, and so that's directing the flow northward, so the front lying just about parallel to the wind flow, so really not moving much, just kind of oscillating around a little bit. So periods of rain continue with pretty breezy conditions through tonight, areas of showers and rain along the North Gulf Coast. Kind of a mixture over the inland areas, but pretty light. Dry weather now shifting into the northern interior. It stays snowy up here to the north. A couple of low centers there over Mackenzie Delta, and the other one there near Kotzebue. And no change out over the Bering Sea. Not too bad. Kind of breezy with snow showers out to the west, but pretty dry conditions over the Pribilofs, dry along the southwest coast. And that low center for tomorrow comes northward, deepens 955 millibars, so another strong one developing there. Gusty winds, rain heavy at times. Kodiak Island, the upslope areas of the Aleutian Range, right along the North Gulf Coast here, and that band of moisture still stalled out for periods of rain across the North Gulf Coast, or the Panhandle there. Heaviest over the northern southeast coast, lighter down to the south, but rain all along Prince William Sound, back into the southwest interior, specifically Bristol Bay. Pretty fair through the central interior, so the Tanana Valley area back out to the Seward Peninsula looking just partly cloudy with winds generally light, and still areas of light snow up here, kind of lifting northward from the Brooks Range during the afternoon hours. So over the North Slope and the Arctic coast could see some, we'll see cloudy skies with periods of light snow up in that area. But snow ending here over St. Lawrence Island, much better day tomorrow than what you saw today. No change for the Aleutians, scattered snow showers and winds generally light, but on the increase here, gales for the eastern Aleutian area is definitely pretty windy for the Alaska Peninsula. And then for Saturday, we'll see that low weekends lifts northward right over the southwest interior areas. Again, pretty good gradient here across south central Alaska, or actually across southern Alaska, with a strong high here holding over British Columbia. That keeping this front, again, moves eastward but kind of stalls out right along the southeast coast for windy, wet weather for that area. Periods of rain with that south to north flow continue for the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, Prince William Sound, and the North Gulf Coast. And then some areas of rain and snow here, Cook Inlet, mostly western Cook Inlet and up the west side of the Sitna Valley to the southern slopes of the central Alaska Range. So that means more gusty winds there for the passes of the Alaska Range, but dry conditions, but mild there through the Tanana Valley. Back out to the west here, areas of rain and snow and gusty winds over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta areas, and low pressure with some snow up over the northeast there, eastern Arctic coast, and then some snow trails back right into Kotzebue Sound, the Seward Peninsula. A little bit of light snow on the western Arctic coast, and then rain and snow showers here scattered around the Bering Sea, and to a lesser extent over the Aleutians. Looks pretty dry for the Aleutians with generally light winds and some clearing there over toward Nikolsky and Unalaska, as well as Adak and Atka. Temperatures along the southeast coast this afternoon shaped up like this: 47 at Sitka, 10 degrees cooler though at Juneau, 41 Klawock, and that was down to 35, 40 degrees in Yakutat, upper 30s here for the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, mid to upper 30s, south central Alaska and Cook Inlet. Kind of a range here up to the north there, 10 degrees at Northway, up to 33 at Fairbanks, 25 Tanana, 36 at Talkeetna. Farther north, we'll see Pretty mild for this time of year, 28 in Fort Yukon, 27 at Bettles, Bettles with light snow today, 14 Anaktuvik, up along the Arctic coast, a little below zero, about 0 to 10 below across the entire area there, but much milder here back to the southwest with 26 at Kivalina and 27 at Kotzebue. Selawik up to 30 degrees and above freezing here at both Nome and Golovin. Otherwise, upper 20s to lower to mid 30s over the southwest interior, and mid to upper 30s for the Pribilofs, 30s for the Aleutians, 30s for the Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, and Bristol Bay. Lows for tonight, again with mild southerly winds, keeping it mild here across Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, and the peninsula areas, and pretty mild conditions right up the west side here all the way into the Noatak Valley areas and the Kobuk and Koyukuk valleys, and really everybody about above zero for the overnight lows tonight, except probably the North Slope and the central Arctic coast. 30s and 40s for the Panhandle. Highs for tomorrow into the 40s for the southeast part of the state, and again mid 30s to near 40 here over Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula. Cooling down but staying above zero even along the Arctic coast. Looking at flying weather, again the next front edging eastward there. Marginal VFR in the increase here across the Panhandle. IFR lifting up to the North Gulf Coast, across the Gulf of Alaska into Prince William Sound, and then through the Barren Islands. Another area of IFR here over the southeastern Bering Sea, Kuskokwim Bay, right across the Alaska Peninsula, and then a band of IFR possible there on the southern slopes of the Brooks Range, with more IFR from the Seward Peninsula across St. Lawrence Island down into the northern Bering Sea, but pretty good out to the west and south. Passes, Anaktuvik, IFR becoming marginal tomorrow. Again, Adigan starting out IFR, becoming marginal VFR. Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, but marginal conditions likely on both entrances, both east side entrances. And for Rainy, VFR in the western entrance, otherwise marginal VFR. Windy, open, Isabel looking good. Same forecast from Antasta, VFR. Tanita, VFR. Portage, though, IFR, especially on the east side. For Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR. Freezing levels at the surface here up to about Nunivak Island to St. Matthew Island. And then down along the North Gulf Coast for late tonight, early tomorrow morning. 2,000 feet right along the North Gulf Coast, warming to about 4,000 feet over the southern Panhandle. Icing, got some icing between the 4,000 and 15,000 foot levels there for the North Gulf Coast. Excuse me, in south central Alaska, 2,000 to 9,000 feet up over the Arctic coast. Upper level wind flow, the jet well south of the Aleutians, diving southward back northward at about 90 knots, carrying that next system northward tonight and into tomorrow morning. And 9,000 foot winds showing easterlies and southeasterlies 45 to 70 knots here across Kodiak Island and Bristol Bay. Lighter over the central interior, but pretty strong winds all the way across the Gulf of Alaska. 50 to 60 knots here right off the southeast coast, and then lighter winds back out to the west, but a band of northwesterlies at about 40 knots across the central Aleutians. 3,000 foot winds, again south to southeast winds 40 to 60 knots right into Kodiak Island. 55 knot winds here along the North Gulf Coast and the Panhandle, lighter over toward the border, and some pretty good winds blowing around this upper level ridge here at about 40 knots, and then lighter over the interior. No winds there for the central Arctic coast and North Slope. Northwesterlies back out to the west around this low center. Again, the central Aleutians will see the strongest conditions. And looking at turbulence, could be a possible area of severe turbulence here along the southeast coast, back to the west into the southern Kenai Peninsula area, Bristol Bay, especially along the Aleutian Range, Kamishak Bay and southern Cook Inlet. Otherwise, moderate turbulence expected below about 8,000 feet here in the turquoise shaded area. And after Stargazer, I'll return with a look at the marine forecasts.
Planets of the New Year.
Hey there, stargazers. I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida.
And I'm Dean Regas, astronomer from the Cincinnati Observatory. We're here to help you find your way around the sky. As we close out 2015 and ring in 2016, I'm sorry to say that there are no planets visible in the nighttime sky right now.
But early birds rejoice. There are a boatload of them that you can check out at my time of day just before dawn. We have Jupiter, Mars, Venus, Saturn, and the moon around in the morning sky to ring in the new year.
Oh no, does that mean I have to get up really early again?
Not at all. Remember, we have the power to fly anywhere in space and time, so you just have to pretend to wake up early.
Oh, well, I could do that. Well, let's show you. We have our sky set up for Sunday, January 3rd, 2016. Happy New Year, by the way. Facing southeast at 5 a.m. in the early morning, and yes, I totally set my alarm and woke up so early to see the sky with you, James.
Give it up, Dean. You're not fooling anybody. But anyway, at 5 a.m. on January 3rd, you'll see a waning crescent moon bracketed by two stars of similar brightness. The one on the right is blue and twinkly, while the one on the left is orange and less twinkly.
The blue star is called Spica, and it's the brightest star in the constellation of Virgo, the Maiden. She is the second largest constellation in the sky, so our apologies if her head gets cut off on your screen.
The orange star isn't a star at all, but it's really the red planet Mars. The moon will be visiting the duo on the morning of the 3rd and will move along on the 4th and the 5th.
Okay, now we've repositioned the sky to 6:15 a.m., the time James wakes up, goes to the gym, runs 3 miles, and then stargazes.
At 6:15, when Dean is fast asleep and dreaming of eclipses, low in the southeast you can find two other planets among the stars of the constellation Scorpius the Scorpion. The brighter planet is so suspiciously bright that many people mistake it for a plane or a UFO.
That's Venus, our sister planet, who, when we zoom in with a telescope, is covered in clouds. These clouds reflect a lot of sunlight, making Venus the brightest planet from Earth, and they also trap in a ton of heat. So Venus is the hottest planet in the solar system, with temperatures of about 900 degrees Fahrenheit.
We have another planet down and to the left of Venus. It might be hard to find at first, but keep trying every morning and you're sure to see Saturn. Saturn is way bigger than Venus, but is over 1 billion miles away from us, so it doesn't shine super bright in our earthly skies.
On January 6th, same time of morning, the moon will appear closer to the two planets, and on the 7th will move on in its orbit and be down and to the left of Saturn.
There's one more planet to talk about, and you can see it high in the southwest just before dawn. And if we go back to the morning of December 31st, New Year's Eve morning, the moon will be right next to it. That's giant Jupiter, largest planet in our solar system and unmistakable to the naked eye.
In a telescope, Jupiter shows off its atmosphere with stripes of different colors and, on occasion, the Great Red Spot. Plus, it has 4 large moons that revolve around it, creating ever-changing alignments as seen from Earth.
As 2016 begins, the moon will move away from Jupiter. Here it is on January 1st, January 2nd, and January 3rd, when it'll be right next to Mars, where we began our early morning episode. So there you have it, a terrific reason to wake up early at the start of 2016.
We'll have the moon next to Mars on January 3rd and 4th.
The moon next to Venus and Saturn on January 6th and 7th.
And Jupiter high up in the south as dawn breaks. Okay, I'm going back to bed. Good night, and keep looking up.
A lot of times people think, well, marine debris is the trash that I see when I go to the beach or maybe when I go and visit a local stream or waterway. But that's just the debris that you can see. Marine debris is submerged. It's floating around in our oceans.
Often, not only will you find the conglomerates that have multiple types of net in them, you also find pieces of plastic, parts of floats, You'll find a lot of laundry baskets.
Marine debris is any solid material that enters into the marine environment, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Marine debris is a global problem that affects all of our oceans across the entire planet. Floating marine debris is oftentimes mistaken for food by marine mammals and sea turtles. Whether it's a plastic bag that looks like a jellyfish or shiny pieces of plastic material that may resemble fish, these animals will go after this and eat it, and eventually it will cause them to starve. And this is because their stomachs will become full of plastic and they won't feel hungry and they won't find the need to eat. Derelict or ghost traps that are found under the water in areas such as the Chesapeake Bay or Puget Sound oftentimes will continue to fish for crabs and other animals. And the problem with this is that there's no one to collect them. So a net or a trap that is just rolling around under the water will continue to collect animals that will eventually die. Ghost nets present a very big problem to the habitat in the oceans, especially to coral reefs, as a net can smother or block out the necessary sunlight that they need. It also damages fragile habitats and the pieces of coral.
A lot of these nets that we find in the ocean are related to the fisheries industry, and it's not something that we can point a finger at and say, this is, your problem, you need to clean this up. We're all responsible for this problem based on the fact that we all like fish. So what we're trying to do, instead of pointing fingers, is take responsibility for the problems that we see. And it's not just one country's problem, it's all of our problem.
Marine debris is generated from various sources, from the large industrial and commercial end down to the specific individual behavior. When a person doesn't put their trash in the proper place or fails to recycle, a lot of times their trash ends up in a stream, in a waterway or storm drain, which is carried out to the rivers, which is carried out to the ocean. There are things that you can do to help the problem of marine debris. You can do the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, or recycle. It's very easy to do this, and it goes a long way towards preventing marine debris.
Welcome back. Look for gales tomorrow all along the coast here, south to southeast, 35 to 45 knots. Seas running in the lower 20s. And also gales tomorrow, southeast 35 for Clarence Strait, southeast 25 for Stevens Passage, south 20 for Lynn Canal. And then on Saturday, still got some gales here on the south coast. Otherwise, small craft advisory, southerlies 25 to 30 knots. Seas still pretty high, 20 to 23 feet. Southeast 30 knots for Clarence Strait, north 20 knots, Stevens Passage, and then back around to the south for northern Lynn Canal, but pretty light there. And for the North Gulf Coast, we've got gale warnings out, storm warnings here for the Barren Islands into Kamishak Bay, those east winds picking up to 50 knots. And southeast 45 there for Kodiak Island, Chillicothe Strait, northeast at 40. Also northeast 40 here for southern Cook Inlet and small craft advisories north of the Forelands, and Prince William Sound, east winds at 35 knots. Those become southeast 25, both for Prince William Sound, northern Cook Inlet. Still have some gales here, southern Cook Inlet all the way down to Chillicothe Strait. Southerlies at 40 knots here, east side of Kodiak Island and the Barrens. North Gulf Coast, 30 to 35 knots southerlies. And heading out west, Bristol Bay, northeast 45 tomorrow, dropping back to about 35 here along the Alaska Peninsula. East winds increasing to 50 knots there southwest of Kodiak Island, seas up to 25 feet. And for Saturday, we've got southwest 40 knots here from Cape Sarachev right up to Sitkinak, south to southwest there 30 knots, Bristol Bay and the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. Out in the Aleutian, small craft advisories west of Adak, northwest 25 to 30 knots, and then westerlies from Adak over to about Nikolsky, becoming a little more west-northwest here and lighter, but then back up to the 30 to 35 knot range there for the Fox Islands. And then for Saturday, pretty light winds, west to northwest, 15 to 20 knots out to the west, and then 15 knot northwesterlies here, Adak over toward Nikolsky, small craft advisories there for Unalaska and Dutch Harbor. And for the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, pretty good gale force northeasterlies tomorrow. North 25 for the Pribilofs and easterlies at 20 for St. Lawrence Island, with that same wind pattern also in store for the northern Bering Sea in the area around St. Matthew Island. And then for Saturday, northwest 25 for the Pribilof, seas at about 10 feet, and south of Nunivak Island, west winds at 25 knots blowing into Kuskokwim Bay. North of the island, we've got northerlies at 30 knots, and that'll extend all the way up to St. Lawrence Island or even the Bering Strait. North 30 knots, 8-foot seas there for St. Matthew Island. Up along the Arctic coast on the east side, east-northeasterlies at about 15 knots, not too bad. Light winds for the central coast. Northerly winds from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort at about 25 knots. That's good for brisk wind advisories. And for Saturday, wind shaping up like this, an increase here in the west, 30 knots, well, actually from Wales all the way up to Cape Beaufort. Brisk wind advisories there. And then northeast 20 for the west side. Easterly winds at about 15 for the central coast, and then those increase here to the east side up to 25 knots. And for the outlook tonight, again, this front, rain, gusty winds here along the southeast coast, and the next system coming northward later tonight, probably spreading some rain in later on into Kodiak Island. Definitely an increase in the winds with that. Snow up here to the north, a break in between. And then for tomorrow, that deep system comes up toward the Alaska Peninsula. Lots of wind, rain heavy at times. Again, the gale force and storm force winds here all the way along the North Gulf Coast. Still have that boundary for wet conditions across the Panhandle. And the outlook for Saturday, again, the same pattern, high pressure over British Columbia. Low pressure tracks northward. South to north flow keeps it mild and occasionally wet over southern Alaska. Break over the central interior and a chance of snow in the north, with snow showers back out to the west. We'll have a safe New Year's Eve, and thank you for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.